I'm John Strum, and this is Real Talk MS. It's February 4th, and we have a lot to talk about. You may never have thought about this before, but there are more bacterial cells inside your body than there are human cells. These trillions of bacteria can impact our health in all sorts of ways, and that includes having an effect on our immune system and brain. It's been said that the gut is the gateway to the central nervous system. In fact, research has shown that people with MS have different gut bacteria profiles compared to people who don't have MS. Today, Dr. Ashutosh Mangalam is joining me to help us understand what this gut-brain connection is all about, how that connection impacts MS and may even be a cause of MS, and what you can do to change the makeup of your gut microbiome. Dr. Mangalam is an Associate Professor of Pathology at the Carver College of Medicine at the University of Iowa. Dr. Mangalam's research is focused on the gut microbiome and the immune system in multiple sclerosis. But before we get to my conversation with Dr. Mangalam, there are a few other things that you should know about. The European Committee for Treatment and Research in Multiple Sclerosis and the European Society for Blood and Marrow Transplantation have published a joint recommendation classifying autologous hematopoietic stem cell transplantation, or AHSCT, as a viable treatment option for some people who are living with relapsing remitting MS. And I'm emphasizing some people here because the recommendation specifies that this stem cell treatment has been highly effective when the patient is under the age of 45, has been living with MS for less than 10 years, is not experiencing cognitive difficulties or difficulty walking, and has highly aggressive MS that has not responded to a high-efficacy disease-modifying therapy. It's worth noting that this recommendation is very similar to the guidance on autologous hematopoietic stem cell transplantation that was published by the National MS Society in 2020, and you can find a link to that recommendation in today's show notes. The international panel of experts who reviewed the available data on AHSCT and MS pointed out that the treatment has not delivered the same positive outcomes for people over the age of 55 who have been living with MS for 20 years or more, or have already experienced cognitive or mobility difficulties. Still, the panel said that AHSCT might be considered for someone in the early stages of progressive MS if that individual is experiencing substantial inflammatory activity and rapid disability worsening despite treatment with a high-efficacy DMT. The panel also noted that several studies are currently focused on comparing AHSCT to a high-efficacy disease-modifying therapy in people with relapsing remitting MS. Results from these studies are expected over the next 5 years, and it's going to be interesting to see not only the comparative effectiveness of each of these treatments, but also a comparison of the relative costs. Today in the United States, AHSCT will cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $150,000 to $200,000, and that may sound like a tremendous amount of money, because it is, but it's actually the less expensive treatment compared to the cost of taking a high-efficacy disease-modifying therapy for 5 years. So the results of those ongoing clinical trials are going to be of interest not only to the patient community, but to the health insurance industry as well. Now, if you'd like to review the published recommendations for autologous hematopoietic stem cell transplantation from the European Committee for Treatment and Research in Multiple Sclerosis and the European Society for Blood and Marrow Transplantation, you'll find that link in today's show notes. Vision problems can be one of the earliest and most common signs of MS. The 3 most common vision disorders among people with MS are optic neuritis, double vision, and nystagmus. Optic neuritis can cause blurred vision, pain in or behind the eye, sensitivity to light, or even loss of vision in one eye. Double vision, well, that sort of explains itself. And nystagmus is a condition where the eyes make rapid, involuntary movements. In other words, they jump around, which makes it hard or impossible to focus on anything you may be trying to see. Myelin repair, or remyelination, offers the promise of restoring function that's been lost to MS. And a research team at the University of Colorado Anschutz Medical Campus has developed a drug candidate that could help restore vision for people with MS and other neurological conditions that damage nerve cells in the central nervous system. The researchers demonstrated that while the brain has some ability to repair itself when damaged, that process can be slow and inefficient. For people with MS, the process slows and eventually stops. But the research team observed that in mice, this experimental drug, called LL341070, has been shown to significantly increase this myelin repair process and improve brain function related to vision, even after severe damage. The researchers noted that even partial myelin repair resulted in significantly improved vision-related brain functions. The next step is to test LL341070 in other areas of the brain while refining the treatment, making this rapid remyelination a potential game changer. Now, I'll add my usual disclaimer here that there's a very big difference between a mouse brain and a human brain. So there's a lot more work ahead before this treatment may one day be available to patients. But that shouldn't take away from this initial win in identifying a potential treatment that accelerates the brain's natural repair mechanism. I'm looking forward to hearing more about LL341070 as this work continues. Meanwhile, if you'd like to review the details of this study, you'll find that link in today's show notes. The Barancik Prize for Innovation in MS Research is an international award administered by the National MS Society, given in recognition of exceptional innovation and originality in scientific research relevant to multiple sclerosis, with an emphasis on impact and potential of the research to lead to pathways for the treatment and cure for MS. And this year, the National MS Society has named Dr. Michael Simons as the winner of the Barancik Prize for 2025. Dr. Simons is a neurologist and researcher at Technical University Munich and the Center for Neurodegenerative Diseases in Munich, Germany. Dr. Simons is being recognized for his pioneering research in myelin biology, glial cell biology, and neuroinflammation. He was the first to illustrate the actual biological processes responsible for creating, shaping, and maintaining the myelin sheath. As a quick refresher, the myelin sheath is the fatty substance that surrounds nerve cells in the central nervous system. In MS, inflammation damages the myelin sheath, interrupting the ability of these nerve cells to communicate, leading to the broad range of symptoms and disabilities that are experienced by people with MS. Dr. Simons' foundational research on myelin biology laid the groundwork for the research on myelin repair that's taking place today in laboratories around the world. As I mentioned earlier in today's episode, myelin repair occurs naturally, but this process is slowed by aging or disease. Dr. Simons' research identified some of the reasons this slowing occurs. Dr. Simons discovered that after myelin is damaged, cholesterol-rich myelin debris isn't cleaned up by the brain cells responsible for clearing damaged cell debris in the brain. These cells are called microglia. And since this myelin debris isn't being cleared, a chronic state of inflammation occurs, which impairs the brain's ability to support myelin repair. Subsequent studies identified specific genes responsible for this reduced ability to repair myelin, and showed that by increasing their ability in microglia, myelin debris was cleared and lesion repair was improved. Taken together, these studies identified a potential mechanism for why myelin repair fails and pathways that can be targeted pharmaceutically to restart that process. Dr. Simon's work also led to characterizing a specific immune cell called CD8 tissue-resident T cells as major contributors to chronic inflammation in the central nervous system, because these T cells activate neighboring microglia and cause them to become toxic to the cells that make myelin. In an animal model of MS, Dr. Simon's team found that treatment with an FDA-approved drug that interferes with the damaging signals from these CD8 T cells was able to reduce that toxic microglial activity and reduce myelin damage. This has direct implications for treating myelin damage and is the basis of a phase 2 clinical trial that's already in the planning stages. Dr. Simons will be on hand to deliver the Barancik Prize Lecture on February 28th at the upcoming ACTRIMS Forum. I'm looking forward to speaking with Dr. Simons at the ACTRIMS Forum, and you can look forward to hearing that conversation the following week. When we talk about myelin damage, most of us typically think of the brain. After all, that myelin is located in your central nervous system. But the inflammation that causes that myelin damage may be triggered by activity that's taking place well south of your central nervous system, in your gut microbiome. That's the colony of trillions of bacteria and microorganisms that live in our intestines while influencing many aspects of our health. Joining me in a moment to discuss the connection between the gut microbiome and MS is my guest, Dr. Ashutosh Mangalam. Researchers continue to find evidence that the road to managing our immune system goes through the gut microbiome that contains the bacteria, fungi, parasites, and viruses that make up the trillions of microorganisms that live in our gastrointestinal tract. These gut microbiota play an important role in the development of our immune system and in our body's immune response. Joining me to help us better understand the gut microbiome and the connection between the gut and MS is Dr. Ashutosh Mangalam. Dr. Mangalam is an Associate Professor of Pathology at the Carver College of Medicine at the University of Iowa. Dr. Mangalam's research focuses on the gut microbiome and the immune system in multiple sclerosis. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Mangalam.
Thanks, John, for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm hoping you can start us off by explaining the importance of the gut microbiome to our everyday overall health.
Yeah, I think gut microbiome is very important. That I don't have to prove it because people understand it every day. They are seeing in the news. But one thing I like to emphasize that we need to understand that why they are important for us. And for that, we have to walk back to human evolution and try to understand that why we have gut microbiome at first place. So my theory is that, and there are evidence to support that, is that during human evolution, because it is always about energy, and there was certain plant food human cannot digest. So if they wanted to be a herbivore or carnivore or omnivore, they have the choice to make. Getting a herbivore is difficult because, in the sense that you need a big body to digest some of these complex plant-based food. At the other hand, if you become carnivore, it is good that you get protein and fat in a very concentrated form, and it is easy to digest than some of the plant material. But then also, it also involves that you need to have a big strength to hunt, and you are not socially very active species. So if you want to be a very successful species like human, we are 5-7 billion all over the world. I think what helped them that they realized that how to use something from the environment like these bacteria, which give them a space. And remember that there was a good selection. There are 60 different phyla of bacteria, but only 2 of them make 90% of our gut microbiome, which said that there is a selection. It is just not a random allocation to anybody, okay, come on in and hop in there. So there is a very specific selection. So that's why that is the first part of this importance of gut microbiome. They help us digest these plant-based food. And studies like if you go to hunter gatherers, they have shown that they have only two kind of microbiome: wet season, which will help you digest plant and fruit and other material, and then a dry season microbiome when they do hunting. It is more a meat based diet. And the kicker is that it is the gut microbiome during the wet season, with it is plant-based diet when you need it. It is that's what we are losing. Like Prevotella is one of the species which always come up. As you eat more plant-based diet, you have a higher level of Prevotella. But we are losing this. And when you have a meat, you get more bacteroid and other bacteria or enterotype they call. But the second evolution happened in this is that it's like you have a tenant, but you keep increasing your rent because you want to get more out of it. So in that sense, what happened is that what I mean is that we slowly outsource our job because now we don't need to spend our energy doing job. So like producing this short chain fatty acid, which is a very important, and everybody in the gut who know about plant-based diet, they know eat fiber because it is good for you. But that is just one part of what gut microbiome do. They do more than that because we have outsourced lots of our job. And one of the best analogy I give it is like when first time we had it, it was like a simple car when Henry Ford made it. What you need is a just four-wheel and an engine, combustible engine, and take you point A to B. But now, our car comes with so much feature. It has a lane assist. It can do blind spot. It can also stop automatically if something come in front of you. It can park your car. So lots of things which we learn, like we have to watch our left side when we change the lane. New driver don't have to do it. So slowly, maybe they will lose that function. So that's what I mean by is that slowly gut microbiota have taken so much of our job. For us, they do it that we are losing those functions because we don't need it. So that's how I think gut microbiota is very important for our health because not only they help digest the food, but they produce lots of chemical which is needed for us being healthy.
A moment ago, I mentioned the trillions of microorganisms that make up our gut microbiome. What determines the composition of that bacteria in our gut?
Actually, that's a great, and you might have got some clue from my first that it is diet. But before diet, remember that there is genes which make us, and all of us are unique. So which means that the first scaffold in this whole thing is our genetics. So genetics play an important role because it will regulate what kind of bacteria can populate our gut. Then the diet has the biggest impact. And give you a little example is that when you are born, there's no bacteria. When you are a milk-based diet, you get a very simple bacteria. Excuse me. Only thing you need to do is that just digest the milk, oligosaccharide. All the fun began when you move from a liquid milk-based diet to solid diet. Because this is where you need these bacteria to metabolize all the complex thing in your diet, which not of all of those we can metabolize. So maximum bacterial expansion happen at this time. That's what we call weaning. When you wean from a liquid diet to a solid diet, that's where maximum bacteria happen. And so that's what the point I'm trying to make is diet is the very big influence in what. But again, remember this is that there are other factors like where you live in. If you live in city, the environment is different. And one thing we learn, and I think one of the story I want to tell, if you give me a time, 1 or 2 minutes, hygiene, emphasis on hygiene have changed our gut microbiota. So give you an example, and this is a story which I always tell. So remember London, which is a bustling city during Industrial Revolution. People moved from countryside to city. But the city was not geared to take care of these thousands of people coming because of the Industrial Revolution. So we generated lots of waste. So somebody said, oh, how about this, that we get all these waste to the river because so that we can remove. So that's how the sewage system was born, that they got all this sewage. So you'll be surprised to know that during late 1860s or 70s, they got the whole Chicago city, they jack it up 5 feet to build a sewage system. But remember, other thing which people at that time didn't know is that all the cities are on a river. It means you get your drinking water from the river. So there was a big cholera epidemic during this 1860 after when they built the sewage system. But at that time, scientists thought disease is by air, not by water. But then they found out that drinking water from downstream Thames River was mixing with the sewage system. And that's why you're getting cholera. So point I was trying to bring in, they acidified the water. So when they acidified the water, now that time people don't know, but we change our gut microbiome so profoundly because now we kill all the water because bacteria because of this acidified water. So when we had acidified water, lots of bacteria which will survive in this will not survive when they go in. Similarly, antibiotic are chemicals in our food and other things, they can impact, and high fat, high protein diet, they can have negative impact on. So putting it all together, our gene, our environment, diet seem to be the biggest influence. Good diet will have good bacteria, not so good diet will not expand, or maybe you will lose the good bacteria and you will have this dysbiotic gut microbiota, as well as our modern lifestyle, which is very hectic.
The connection between the gut and the brain is a complex connection. Communication systems pass both ways between the digestive system and the central nervous system, and this is called the gut-brain axis.
Yeah.
What are researchers learning about how the gut-brain axis may influence MS?
Actually, that's a great question because there are lots of talk about that. So you might have heard some people say that gut is our second brain, but some people argue that brain is our second brain, CNS system, gut is our first brain. And why people say that? It is because there is an enteric nervous system. So after CNS, this is the maximum number of axon, neuron, ganglion, which is there in your gut. And this system, and why some people say it is the first brain, is because this system is there even starting from hydra and plankton, which is like a very lower order animal. So ENS is basically an autonomous system which help us with digesting anytime we eat. Because remember, if you want to survive, you need food. For food, the most important part of your body is orophycal route. So that's why some people, gastroenterologists, say that we are nothing but the worms, because we eat and we poop to get it out and we absorb all these things. And then they say we have few extra appendages like hands and legs and other things, which even if you don't have, you can still live. But if your this important gastric system doesn't work, so it is such an important system of our body that it needs to be regulated. And that's why this enteric nervous system, or ENS in short, which is called, which regulate this, how we eat, when to release the juice, because it has to make us hungry. Like we see it ad on TV and then suddenly we feel, oh, we need to eat that pizza, or somebody is eating something. So that is part of this ENS nervous system, because it will produce these hormones or other factors. So first make us hungry. Then when we eat it will prepare it, like, before you eat dinner, you have to prepare your dining table. So it will prepare our gut to accept this food we are eating it, secrete the juice, so it is digest, and most of this is absorbed in the stomach. But remember that where gut microbiota come in, because the lots of food is not absorbed in the stomach if you have plant-based diet. So where does it go? It goes to colon, where this lots of trillions of bacteria, which you mentioned, that's where this hubbing with like all these microbes, they help in digest and extract energy from this, as well as produce lots of metabolite, which help us, like, keep us healthy. So there is this network, as you can understand, this is such an important system. So it has to be regulated, because remember that humans are different than other animals, because we do with less. Wheat have 6 times more gene or 4 times more gene than us. But what we do is that we have a very good endocrine system, which help us do more with the less, because we can regulate these things with brain signal telling when to do what. So our brain control this enteric nervous system when to regulate that. And enteric nervous system, like in gut, you produce lots of these factors like serotonin, which help with your mood, dopamine, which you get a reward, like I should do this because like play a Powerball, or I should win, or I should do dopamine is that signal. And then GABA, which is known that one of the hormone which help you with these things. And then so serotonin, 90% of your serotonin is produced in the gut. And it also helps regulate your immune system. And lots of these signal through vagus nerve goes to the brain. And this is a two-way highway. Like you said, that it is a communication between CNS, which I say brain and spinal cord, and then your gut, which is ENS system. And that's how they communicate. Brain, you can, in a simplest term, if you have to get an analogy, which I like because it is easier to tell people so you can think about your gut as a conductor in this orchestra which control different moving parts to make sure when you eat you get the maximum out of your food. And the brain, your CNS, what does it do is control that it do everything on time, but at some time when your blood supply need to go somewhere else, it need to go somewhere else. Like when you want to sleep, your blood supply go to different places. And if you want to run, so then your blood supply more need to be your muscles, not to your gut, because what all the energy you will do if you die. So that's what brain control all these features. And that's why there is a big connection between gut and brain, because as you can think, it depends what you call it, first brain or second brain, but it is a kind of a brain in our body, a second brain in our body. I hope that clarifies something.
Several research studies, including work conducted by you and your colleagues, have found that people with MS often have gut dysbiosis, or an imbalance of bacteria in their gut. How does gut dysbiosis happen, and what role does it play in MS?
So I think that's a great question, because it comes to again, because first we need to understand in first 2 questions and 3 questions, we understand that, okay, what is the normal gut microbiota, what it involves, what they do during normal, how they keep us healthy. But think about this is that I will say gut dysbiosis is like a civil war kind of thing, is that, so there's a small city and everything for function properly. So you can think about in a city, there is a doctor, there is a cook, there is a cobbler, there is a school principal. So everybody have a role to play. And that's how the gut microbiota, you can think about that, it is community where everyone help each other and everything is dependent on that. Because if one part doesn't work, it might have more. So like if it is a small city and you have only one doctor in the city, if that doctor goes away, the community might collapse because it is so much dependent on that. So think about something similar in your gut microbiota. There are so many bacteria which work together in tandem. It is a community. So what happened? Let's say you have a very important member of community, let's say bifidobacteria or prevotella. So when you eat healthy food, it helps you produce lots of good chemical, but it don't do alone. So there is a keystone species like Bifido and Prevotella. Then there are guild. It is part of a guild where other bacteria will work with it is to produce a beneficial chemical. But let's say suddenly there was in your life, you got lots of stress because of job related or family issue or anything which happened in your life, or you are eating food which is don't have lots of things which bacteria need. So remember that these bacteria need a plant-based food to survive. So if you don't have them, suddenly they will go away. But at the same time, what will happen that certain people are more adaptable into different conditions. So think about this way is that certain bacteria might adapt to this condition, which is inflammatory because this condition is not very conductive because suddenly city have something going wrong, like there's a riot going on in the city because this system which was in place is not working properly. And I don't think you have to go ahead. You can see it around your city in different city hall. Like Detroit, when it was a buzzing city, suddenly everything collapsed there. So think about dysbiotic as that your community member are now, good ones are gone, either the bad one has come in or the good ones now have changed based on the circumstances. So what happened that when I say good become bad is basically certain bacteria become rogue because they join the other parties, because the environment is not conducive. It is an inflammatory environment due to circumstances. And they start, so remember that at the first instant, these bacteria are there because they needed diet to survive. If you don't provide a good diet, so either you provide the food or you become the food. So during this dysbiosis, certain bacteria which live in there peacefully, now they are not peacefully because they start eating your mucin. So remember, your gut have a lining. So when these lining get affected, now the barrier is open and you can get intruders. Because remember, at the end of the day, these are bacteria which have LPS and lots of other these things which can stimulate your immune system. So in fact, they found in MS, lots of these training for these pathogenic cells happen in your gut. So if you remove the gut bacteria, then you don't get disease, because these gut bacteria help not only help in getting good immune system, but also during these pathogenic condition, they can enrich for, so that's where the pathogenic bacteria come in, which will enrich for these pathogenic cells, which can cause CNS disease. I hope that answer the question.
I'm wondering, can gut dysbiosis be reversed?
Yes, it can. But it is a complex, because it is not one size fit all. Because just think about it, is that maybe certain individual have bacteria which is not lost all the way. Because remember that there was a good community. However, now to get that community back, you need those. So remember, again, giving to that civil war analogy, is that there are three portions. So you can have a ceasefire, which is immunomodulatory drug do. Right now, we have lots of immunomodulatory drug. They can do ceasefire, but they cannot reverse the disease. So then what people say, okay, can I eat probiotics? So when you eat probiotics, what happens is that you are keeping the peacekeeping forces in there. But remember, that environment was not conducive. That's why these good bacteria were lost in first place. So when you send in these probiotic or peacekeeping force, maybe in certain individual who are eating a good diet, with this, they can survive and they can expand, and you can slowly get your good function back. But think about something, if you don't change your diet and you are still living, or your environment or your genetics, which you cannot change, you are eating this probiotic, they might not help because you don't have a conducive environment for these probiotics. So in my view, I think you need to take care of both diet plus bacteria together to have a maximum effect where you can reverse the gut microbiota to a eubiosis, what we call, instead of dysbiotic, which is generally in the patient.
As we've been discussing, diet
Yeah.
is one of the strongest influences on the composition and function of the gut microbiome. Besides making changes in our diet, are there strategies that can improve someone's gut health?
Oh, yeah, I think it is. So again, come back to that diet is one of the factor, but environmental factor are so many things. And I always give this example, is that people who have a very strong community social structure, most of the centennial people who live more than 100, when they ask, one thing they found is that they have a very good social networking connection. So one of the things which can help everyone having a good network of people, and what it will help with, number of things. It will reduce your stress, because when you get something off your chest, there's nothing better feeling than that. Other is that having a good healthy lifestyle, little bit of exercise. You don't have to go do 100 hours in a week, but simple 15 to 30 minutes of walking or limited exercise can help you. Environment, if you can, you should always have good environment where trees are. Try to go to countryside if possible, as much, maybe every 3 months go there, so that you can get lots of these good bacteria from these environment. Also practicing like mindful life, like doing yoga, tai chi, or anything which you can calm down your brain and reduce your stress. Because ultimately, all these things, what come down to is that reducing your stress, keep making sure that you are healthy and happy, eating healthy food. I think all these things can help you. These lifestyle changes can help you have a better gut microbiota and healthy lifestyle.
Dr. Ashu Mangalam, I want to thank you for all you do to improve the lives of people living with MS. And thanks so much for talking with me today.
Oh, thank you. It was so much fun, John.
That's going to wrap up this episode of Real Talk MS. Real Talk MS is powered by the National MS Society. And you can share this episode of the podcast by letting your friends or family members know that all they have to do is point their web browser at realtalkms.com/388. You'll find that link in today's show notes so you can easily copy and paste it right into an email or text. And if you have a minute, I hope you'll visit the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store and download the free Real Talk MS app for your iOS or Android smartphone or tablet. It's the best way for us to stay connected. The app will automatically download the latest episode of Real Talk MS. You'll be able to access any of our past episodes. You'll be able to save your favorite episodes. And it's a great way for me to share bonus content with you. The app is free, so I hope you'll download it today. I'm John Strum. Thanks for listening. Stay safe and make healthy choices.